Welcome to the Vitalistic Voice. I'm Dr. Colin Elkin. This is going to be an amazing call for all of our viewers this morning. And I just want to say that I am so honored and so thrilled to have our guest on this morning. We have a bunch of guests, a bunch of our coaching clients, but our special guest this morning is Dianna Chandler, who is just one of the not only just the best people I know, she really has a heart for serving and a heart for people and a heart for really transforming lives, but she is so good at her job as a CA, which she's done now for close to 20 years. And she's just amazing at it. So I'm so thrilled to have her on the podcast this morning. So Di, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us this morning. This is really, really, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to have you with us. So just to give you a little introduction. So Dianna Chandler has been one of my CAs for nearly 20 years in the office. And now, with the transition of our office, with the sale of the practice to Dr. Vince, she has stayed on for the last couple of years with him, which really says a lot about her conviction to the principle of chiropractic and serving people, which I think is fantastic because that's not always the case with teams. When there's a transition in a practice or any type of business, there's often a transition of teams too. But you have stuck with it, and that really goes, to show a lot about your just total commitment and your conviction for this. So one of the things, and this is really quite amazing, one of the things that built our practice, and we had a practice of, close to 1,200 people a week for a long time, and we hovered right around that 1,000 people a week for many, many years. I was in practice for pretty close to 30 years.
Mhm.
And I really give our team all the credit. Like they were so inspired, and the majority of our team have been with us for many, many years, 25, 20 years, 18 years. And it was really building up that team that created the energy in the office that attracted people, and people just wanted to stay as part of our culture. One of the things that we did to really give back to the community was our dinner program. And it started very small. So it started with patient appreciation dinners, which we started doing years ago, probably back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And really, all that was just a way of basically saying thank you for being a patient and an opportunity to share our vision with people. And that's really what our whole goal was to share our vision. And when my wife and I and all of our team got together and said, our main goal is to help people understand that there is an incredible power within them, there's an intelligence within them. And if we remove the interference from their spine and nervous system by correcting subluxation, they have the ability to function and heal the way that they were created to function and heal, who reach their full potential that God created them to be on this face of this earth. And that was our whole philosophy. So it wasn't about getting new patients. It wasn't about seeing more people or making more money. It was about really serving and helping people understand that principle. But that was the foundation. And our practice just exploded around that principle. But one of the things that we did was create this dinner program in our office that grew and grew over time. And Di took it over and she absolutely crushed it. So I'd like to just ask you a whole bunch of questions this morning, Di. And again, thanks for being with us. But just to give our viewers, and of course, obviously our people on the line here, some ideas and some inspiration on how that all came together.
For sure. Yeah. So the first thing that we would do is, having a staff meeting and figuring out, pick a couple of dates that everyone's available because you want to make sure you have as many staff members available at the events just to make it easier, run smooth for that day.
So typically when we were doing our staff meetings, how far out were we looking in the future to book these dinners?
A couple of months for sure.
At least a couple of months. Yep.
Yeah.
I seem to remember us talking about the schedule being every 8 weeks, we would
Mhm.
typically have another dinner.
Yeah.
And so tell us how it all worked. Like, so first of all, we talk in the staff meetings. What was the whole vision that you recall of us having the dinner? What was the whole purpose of doing things?
Well, like you said too, it was a thank you for being patients of our office. And then, yeah, we wanted to get as many people knowing about what chiropractic care is all about. Depending on the topic of the dinner, it all came back to chiropractic. Whether it was a heart health talk, a cancer talk, it always came back to chiropractic care and how that could affect everyone in our community.
That was the big thing, and that's something that we discussed as a team, and that every dinner, when we started having community appreciation dinners as opposed to just the patient appreciation dinners, when we wanted them on a bigger scale, we would have an advanced talk at the dinner, and that was one of the things that drove it. So let's talk a little bit about the planning. So we're at least 8 weeks out. What are some of the things that you did with liaisoning with the place, and what were some of the features of the place where we had our dinners to make it really successful?
Well, first of all, when we picked a date, we had to consider the time of year. So, booking in the summer wasn't always the best because people were on vacation. Even though they say, "Yeah, we're coming," they'd end up going on vacation, and then the numbers would go down there. Long weekends, right after a long weekend, was never a good time, and then through September. Kids going back to school, parents were like, no, no, too much going on. So we wanted to get them back on schedule. So we learned after a few times of knowing when and when we can't do those events. But calling the venue, discussing a couple of dates, so having a couple of dates available for the doctors to be able to come, for the staff to be able to come. If it's a hotel, pick a menu. If you're renting a hall, make sure that you can, have outside food available. Call the caterer, get food options, that kind of thing.
So one of the things we talked about in our staff meetings was how big, like when we decided how big we wanted to make these dinners. So we actually kind of had a number in mind, and then you would take that number and go to the hotel. So what were some of the discussions that you had with the person at the hotel to organize all the little details?
Picking a menu, we obviously wanted a really healthy menu as best we possibly could. So talking to them, finding the date, getting a rough idea. We'd start, maybe at 200 and go from there. A few years back, it was what they say we were hosting weddings that day because there were so many people that we had with having people bring their guests as well, family, friends, and then opening up to the community. But we would talk about, how many people were coming, so we knew what area of the hotel we're going to have, a smaller room or the grand ballroom, and then finding out, as far as how many tables we need to have, how many people at tables, and then the pricing, obviously, um, that would be the biggest things. It's just getting it booked.
So details about the pricing. So what can you comment with everybody on the pricing? How do we negotiate the pricing with the hotel?
So that kind of started before I took it over. But it was, we wanted to say, okay, what's our max for, per head, for per person for each meal. And then, if it was like, we don't want to do that, so we kind of tweak the menu, and they were really good with us at the Best Western because we were there how many times a year, and I worked with the same people, and it was really well working with them. Even if they did change people, they still knew that, we had a great event and they wanted us back.
So we often, when we had that number of people coming, what can you comment on about either having table service or buffet?
So yeah, so the buffet was the best thing in our eyes. We would, depending on how many people that we had booked, they'd either have, one line, two line, three lines, four lines of people just to make the process happen faster. So people were eating, and then that way we could get started with the talk as well. Um, so yeah, and we'd make sure that, the servers, they would have one person that was in charge of going, okay, this table, you go next, you go next. So it was a constant movement. So it was very, very efficient.
What do you remember about the menu items specifically? We tried to make it help.
I think,
Mhm.
yeah, for the most part, I think it was like a chicken that we had. I think with the salsa topping, we'd have rice, salads, vegetables, no desserts. There might have been fruit, coffee and tea, um,
And no
but
alcohol.
no alcohol.
Right. Right. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Now next, let's shift back to the office. So once we had all of that established, and we had the venue, we had the date picked, we negotiated the price of the meal, the menu and everything, and obviously the setup. And we had a number in our mind, let's say it was 250 people or 300 people, whatever that was. it would be
Mhm.
so many tables of, let's say, 10, and I
Right.
remember us having round tables. How would you and the rest of the team then start promoting it inside the office?
So what we would do, we would have, I would make up tickets, and they were like credit card size. They could fit in your wallet, fit in your purse. On those tickets, it would have the date, the venue, the time, and so we'd have those done first of all, and then we'd have the sign up sheet ready, and then we'd have the flyers. So we'd make up flyers. I worked with you to figure out, exactly what the topic was, and then promote those with flyers throughout the office. I always made sure that there was flyers everywhere. So wherever staff was, there was a chance to hand out a flyer and discuss it. So the flyers at the front desk, flyers in each adjusting room, flyers on the hot seats, and then just making sure that all the staff was aware of what the topic was, and just making sure you're talking to every single patient that walked by you. Do you have your tickets yet? Have you heard about our dinner? Who are you inviting? Who are you bringing with you? So it was just making sure that every single person knew about the event and not having, oh, I didn't know that there was a dinner. I would have liked to come. So it's just making sure that those flyers were on the whiteboard as well.
And then I think it was you were the instigator of this, is that you would start to encourage people to bring a table, and you would actually reserve an entire table for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if people wanted, wanted to have more than six people, then yeah, you want to make sure you're all sitting together. So we would, reserve tables. We'd have, reserve sign with their name on it. And then also we'd have, that for the staff as well. So when we got there, that we had our own table as well. But yeah, just, I mean, the more people that could come, the better. It's not just for patients of the office. At first, when we first started on the smaller scale, it was. But it's like, yeah, let's get all this information out to the community. So we would do that and say, okay, who you bring in?
And you guys were the masters of decorating. And so once we'd established what advanced talk we have, like you said, maybe it was a heart health talk or a cancer talk or an immune function talk or whatever that was, it was always related to chiropractic or some
Mhm.
sort of natural perspective, quote unquote, non-medical perspective on a health topic.
Mhm.
And you were masters at decorating the office. So can you comment a little
Absolutely.
bit about some of the decorations?
Well, the one that brings to mind is the heart health talk, where you brought in a cow heart and hung that so people would actually walk into it and ask, why are you hanging a heart in the office?
If you've ever seen a cow heart, it is about the size of a rugby ball. It's huge. And typically it's, I mean, with cows that are grain fed, it's covered in fat. Like it really is. It's a very, very grotesque thing. So we actually had it vacuum packed and we would suspend it from the ceiling. So it would be right at face level. So people would literally have to walk around it to get to the adjusting tables. And of course that attracted attention. But that was one of the best marketing tools we ever,
Right.
yeah. So
But
that
I'd also put balloons up or just, different streamers and stuff. It's like, oh, what's going on? What's the party? Whose birthday? And that just gave another option for us to be able to just to start talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were masters at that. So then you would start to create the list and you'd start to put the list together of people who were attending and obviously their guests and whatnot. And you and I give you credit again, you were very organized at who were the list of patients and who were the guests that they were bringing. And you actually got names and got contact information for all those people. Am I correct?
Right. Yes. Yeah. So on this sign up sheet, we would have the name of the person, the patient of the office, their guests, phone numbers for everybody. And then on the back of the tickets, we'd write their names as well. So if someone's like coming in, a patient coming in, oh, I'm going to bring, three guests, we'd write the name on the back of the ticket and it would correspond with the number on the sign-in sheet. So that way, when they came into the dinner, it was really easy. They hand in your ticket and the names are on the back so we could, it's just easier for registration purposes.
So leading up to the dinner, what did you and the rest of the team do for reminders?
A couple of days before, we would do phone calls for everybody. And then last, recent years when we had the texting service, texting everybody, making sure that they were confirming. And
Yeah.
we needed confirmation about at least a couple of days before for the hotel or the halls that we were renting. So we knew exactly how much food that we needed to have.
Yeah. And one of the things, and I know this was your negotiation too, the hotel was very flexible and they would give us a range of numbers. So we would only pay
Yeah.
for actually the people that showed up. So if we said 200, but only 185 showed up, we'd get billed for 185 people as opposed to 200. They
Right.
did,
It was like a 10% difference.
yeah, yeah, which is a great negotiating factor there. So awesome. So the night of the dinner. So let's shift to that. So now that's the night of the dinner. How early were you there to prepare, and what were certain things that you did to prepare for when people started showing up?
So a couple of us were there, usually about an hour prior to the dinner, making sure that we had a registration table, actually two registration tables. So we'd have a registration table for patients of the office, and we'd have a little sign on the table that said patient registration, and another one that said guest registration. The patient registration was easy. You walk in, they give us their ticket, we put it in a little basket, later on for door prizes potentially. And then for the guests, the patient would say, okay, this is where you go over here and you register. And so we had a little packet for guest registration, or for guests, sorry. And it would have, dates of our upcoming events. We'd have a gift certificate in there for, a new patient examination, different things that we had in our office to offer. So, massage or physio, stuff like that. And so we would, let them know that, here you go, and have a paper on the back that said notes on it, have pens on the table so they could take notes as well. So it's just really easy for the patients to come, guests to make them feel welcome. If they had any questions throughout the dinner, that they knew who they could come to and ask questions.
And I remember us intentionally scripting this and the fact that those guests would come up to the guest registration, and you guys were very, very articulate at this, and the fact that, welcome to the dinner. One of the things that Dr. Collins going to talk about tonight is you having your spine and nervous system checked, and he's made a special arrangement for you to come in at a low fee or no fee or whatever that was at the dinner. It was a special arrangement to maybe even come in for a no fee examination. Would you like to go ahead and set that up now? So you'd actually be booking new patient appointments before everything started. Am I right?
Before the dinner, yes, it's right. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, which was awesome. And I know that that was one of the most successful things of those dinner. Even though that one, I want to really clarify, that was not the intention of the evening. That was one of the beautiful side effects of just this energy that we created in this whole situation. So that was awesome.
And
Um,
and by doing that, and sorry, but and doing by doing that at the beginning of the dinner, it trying to, put that seed in their head that, as they got through listening to all the talk and everything happening, it's like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. And so they would come see us afterwards, or, we put your hand up and we'd go to the table and book appointments right then and there.
So that you just nailed it. And so that was the biggest thing. And this is one thing I want to make very clear in that it wasn't just one ask. It wasn't just one opportunity to make an appointment to come into the office. They had the opportunity right when they walked in the door. And then through the talk, that would be the first thing that I would address at the beginning of the talk, saying, hey, welcome to the guests. You had the opportunity to make an appointment. I hope many of you did. For those of you who didn't, hopefully you get inspired through the evening to change your mind and go ahead and make an appointment before you leave. And so we touch on that a few times through the talk and then at the end of the night. And then by the end, when they're leaving, you'd also have a lineup of people who hadn't made an appointment lined up there to make that appointment at the end of the night.
Absolutely.
What were some of the numbers? Can you recall what were some of the numbers for a appreciation dinner? How many new patient appointments would we typically end up with at the end of a dinner?
Again, depending on the number that we had at the dinner, but it could go anywhere from 20 to 40 people.
Yeah. Yeah, they were always very, very successful. I do
Mhm.
remember some of the
Yeah.
big dinners even getting close to 90 and 100 new patient
Yeah.
appointments in any of those dinners,
Yeah.
all the
And
guests.
we would get phone calls afterwards as well. I didn't sign up for an appointment, and can I still do that? So we would get phone calls into the office afterwards as well.
Yeah, cool, cool. So then through the evening, what were some of the other things that we did to make this really an exciting event?
So we would have baskets on the table as well. This was nice for the community. Asking people, like we're collecting donations for community organizations like the food bank or something. And it's like, if you have that extra 5, 10, $20 to donate, we'd appreciate that, and that just goes right to the community.
Yeah, awesome. And that was something that we intentionally did beforehand. So we would actually choose in our staff meeting, we would choose a charity and we would talk to that charity and say, hey, we're having a community dinner. We're going to be supporting the charity. So often we would have a representative from the charity there. And sometimes we'd actually bring them up and introduce them, and talk a little bit about the charity and say, this is the pay it forward time. We're not asking for any money for the dinner. We're happy to do that. And we're happy to see the new patients at a very reduced fee or no fee, and that's a service that we provide for our community. And all we ask is that you pay it forward, and whatever's in your heart, a loonie, a toonie, 5, 10, 20, whatever. And we actually had people be very generous, and we'd often collect quite a few $100s. And here's the cool thing about that, and you probably remember this, Di, is that then we would take all that money afterwards and we would in the form of a check, and then we would often have a special presentation for the representative of that charity and take pictures and maybe even
Mhm.
submit that to the newspaper and so on. So it just
Yeah.
created this goodwill and this marketing system afterwards. So what else can you think of through the evening? Were there other things that perhaps I'm forgetting right now that you recall that really made the evening special for people? You
Well,
mentioned, I'm going to tee up here, you mentioned about door prizes.
yeah, so we would have some people offer or donate some door prizes as well. So that was a fun thing because everyone wants to win a prize. So with the tickets, when patients or non-patients came into the dinner, we would do door prizes at the end. Sometimes we would do, we go prior to the event and stick numbers or underneath their chairs. So people would look under their chairs and find the winner, and that was always fun. Um, then there was the time where you and Dr. Vince got out your guitars and started playing and singing.
Right, right. We performed exactly. Yes, we never got asked back after that, but it was
Right, right,
fun at the time, right? But these are all like great ideas, and I know you and the team came up with a lot of these things. And here's the other thing too that we intentionally, I remember talking in staff meetings, we intentionally wanted to honor a few of our patients who had been there for a long time. And again, it was planting a
right.
seed in other people's mind. We would honor whoever they were who had been here for 5 years or been here for 10 years or referred a whole bunch of people that brought a table of others. Their
Mm,
commitment to helping people get well and healthy was huge. And so we wanted to honor them. So we'd have intentional prizes again for those people, bring them up, and of course, um, you know, give them a big love, a bit of love and a big hug in front of everybody else.
right. And another thing too is that we did was when we had our lifestyle makeovers, when we had the challenges and people were losing weight or just changing their lifestyles. They had, went from having headaches to no headaches or, whatever the case may be. And it was a great opportunity to acknowledge those people as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this is fantastic. And I'm sure there's probably a lot more details that we just take for granted that you would do anyway, that everybody's probably going to want to ask questions for. So I'd love to open up the line just for the next few minutes. And if anybody has questions or perhaps is inspired to say, hey, I'd like to try this or at least get this system started in my office, because and I can't tell you, if you want to build a big, high volume, long-term, lifetime wellness patient practice, this is a fantastic way to do that. So if you have questions about the dinner and specifically for Di, I would invite you right now to open up your line, turn your camera on, and go ahead and ask your question.
Mhm.
I've got a question.
Dr. Graham.
Yeah, on average, Di, roughly how many people from the office would come to these events? Like you say you advertise them for a week or 2 weeks. Would 10% kind of come to these events? Would 50% come to the event? Just if you could give us just a ballpark figure there, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, actually, we actually promoted for a lot longer than 2 weeks. We would probably do close to a month. It started off, just a couple of people here and there, but it would probably, I'm going to say, honestly, it's going to be different for every event. We'd have the same people, like longtime patients they knew there's a dinner coming, or they'd ask me when a dinner was coming and they wanted to come. So they always wanted to get that newest information. And even if they've been to a cancer talk before, they've been to a heart health talk before, there's always new information that Dr. Cullen was bringing or Dr. Kim was bringing. So there's always new information. So we encourage them, even though they'd been before, still come. And it's like, and don't forget to bring your friends, bring your family. You don't have to be a patient of the office to come. So um, I'm going to say maybe 25 to 40% of the practice. There are always excuses why they can't come. So we would try to, get rid of those excuses for them.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Graham. So was it ever, could we ever get 100%? Never, never. We never got 100%, but I think we put our systems in place to try to market this as much as possible. And Di's right. We did have our warrior patients who wanted to come, and they would constantly bring guests, and so they would bring sometimes different guests at every dinner.
Mhm.
But typically we got to the point where, and Di, correct me, but if I'm wrong, 200 people was really a small dinner. Like that was kind of our benchmark.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the thing. And I think it created momentum. So you start doing this on a regular basis, and we did it every 8 weeks. Once you start to create momentum and it doesn't just become a one-time sporadic event, people just knew it was happening. And if they can't make this one, well, they make the next one. If they can't make the next one, they make the next. They just know it's part of the culture of the office. And
Mhm.
eventually, they're gonna buy in and show up. Something's gonna work out. So I think that was the biggest successful tip that we ever did was we just made this part of our regular routine.
And then also letting the patients know that, oh, I've already been to one. I can't come to another one. Absolutely. Absolutely you can. Again, we're thankful that you are patients of our office, and we encourage you to come in here and have a great meal.
Yeah, great point. And I'm going to address that too. That was the whole mindset piece in that this was our way. Like we were so grateful as a team, like not just myself or my wife, but as a team, we were really grateful for what we had created, or what we had the opportunity to create in our community. And so just to show that gratitude, and I think there's something universally that happens when you start to show that gratitude and actually not just state it, but do something about it. And it was really a way to show our gratitude to the community. And we would often call people in the community, like whether it was politicians or well-known people who perhaps were not patients, and say, this is going on. And they would often come out to the dinner just to support what we were trying to accomplish. Here's another situation, and this was an interesting thing. So we actually did a few ads for later in the years with these dinners on Facebook or social media, and we attracted quite a range of our cultures in the community. I mean, we had a bunch of homeless people that came into the dinner. Di, you want to comment on that? That was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. We knew that when they were coming in the doors that because yeah, we would have the messages on our social media, and they would call, they'd come into the office, get their tickets, or we'd have the tickets at the door for them. A lot of people came in, they had their meal, and then they left. But they were very thankful. They didn't necessarily want to hear the whole talk, but they were thankful that they came in and got a good meal, and you know they heard some information that they probably wouldn't have heard if they didn't have that free meal.
But this was the whole mindset. And I think that's the part of the fun about this whole thing. This was the whole mindset in that was the whole purpose of doing this is we just wanted to serve our community in a bigger way. And that's what happened is it all came full circle.
Yeah. Another thing I just thought of too is that when you were saying, what made it fun and interesting, there's been times where we had someone come in and, everyone stood up and we did Zumba.
Right, right.
Right.
We did do Zumba. That's right. We
Yeah.
had one of our patients who led a Zumba class, and we did do Zumba. Well, and that was the other, actually, so you just spurred my memory here. So we actually tried to partner with as many people, especially members of our practice, who had congruent businesses or had congruent hobbies or cultures or whatnot, so that whether they were massage therapists or whether they taught Zumba or personal trainers or whatever that was, and we had them sometimes as guest speakers or they would be able to set up a booth. We had people that sold natural healthcare products, or, for instance, Enyo, like natural cleaning products, they would be able to set up a table at the dinner and we would cross promote them. So it was really kind of a nice little community involvement thing to bring people
Mhm.
together. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Awesome. Okay, well, Di, I can't thank you enough. This has been wonderful. I hope we've touched on all the parts. I know I'm going to get off the call and I'm going to say, geez, we should have talked about this. I know that there were so many moving parts to put this together, but the biggest thing, and I'm going to say to the viewers, is that just start slow. Just start by picking half a dozen patients in your office. And I would even suggest patients who don't have their families under care. Target them and say, listen, I'm just grateful that you're a patient in the office. I'd love to take you out for dinner. Go and book a room at a restaurant and book a big table and take everybody out for dinner and don't expect anything out of it and just share your heart with them. Share why you're a chiropractor, share your mission for serving and saving lives. Ask them about their experiences. Use it as a way to get feedback from them. What do you like about our office? What could we do better? What do you not like about our office? What's your experience been so far? And watch what happens. It's really amazing when you just show a heart to serve and you're open-minded and you just ask for feedback, and all of a sudden things start to snowball. And you just start somewhere, and then next thing you know, you have we used to call them the Italian wedding dinners where you have
Mhm.
350 people coming out. It's kind of fun. All right. Any final thoughts? Anybody?
Hi, I'm just driving. So I'm gonna put it back on mute, but I wanted to know, like with my team, when we have events, sometimes they're on fire where they're telling everybody and then they're like, oh, everybody said no that shift, and then they kind of forget about it. And then I'm like, okay, guys, remember. So, Di, what would you recommend as far as how to keep the team motivated to keep telling them about the next event? Because that's what I feel. I feel like, hey, if I remind them, then they'll do it. Otherwise, they don't really feel inspired to do it to me
Great question. Great
sometimes.
Yeah.
question, Don. Yeah.
I agree with that. So I took that on myself. And a good thing to do is in huddle, say everyone picks 5 people from the day sheets. Pick 5 people and say, I'm going to address these 5 people today. And then after that, it's like, oh, how many tickets am I going to give out today? Our goal is, 15 this shift or 20 this shift. So I took it upon myself because people, yeah, I mean, all the staff members, they got their own little things they're thinking about. I took that as my goal to see how many tickets that we could. So I kind of like, here's your sheets, or here's your flyers today. Make sure that these all get handed out and just kind of encouraging, not this is your job, encourage them. We want to see as many people as we can. We want to have this a really big dinner. And just, we want to help people. We want to save lives.
We were definitely old school. We went through a few trees in marketing those dinners, printing off those flyers for sure.
Yeah.
Great question though. And I think that was the consistent thing is that we just had a regular weekly staff meeting and we always talked about that was part of the regular routine is we talk about the upcoming event. So everybody knew exactly when it was. There was no confusion. We had specific people we were targeting. And here's the other thing actually, it just reminded me is that sometimes we would target specific people by making a special invitation for them. It might be a handwritten invitation from the doctor, or you would actually target those people and take that handwritten invitation and actually go and verbally ask them and say, it's really important for me. It's really important to me that you get this invitation, and I would really be honored if you would come and bring your spouse or bring some guests or whatnot. But I really would love you to be there, and that means a lot. And it's almost I don't want to say it's putting pressure on people, but I think when they get that, it feels that much more elevated for them. Okay. Anybody else? Last couple questions? Well, Di, I just want to say thank you very much. I mean, clearly you're so good at this, and I know that that obviously we could probably go on for a long time, and there's so many other aspects of practice that I'm sure you could bring to the table and help everybody out here. But certainly appreciate your time today, and this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much.
Take care. All the best.